Gloucester Community Arts Charter School Finance Committee meeting, January 10th. Our agenda start time is 6 o'clock, but the record show that it's about 6:17 right now, and we'll officially begin the meeting. So if you notice that we are being filmed, and this is our welcome guests and public comment. If there's any public comment, this is the time to do it. What we've requested from experience in past meetings that everyone keep their comments to 3 minutes in length, and that we try to close off public comment after 10 minutes of speaking. Are there any public comments?
Yes, I'd like to make a public comment since it's not an agenda item. And I just wanted to say, anybody who's around tomorrow, we've converted our 4th grade classroom into a TV studio. We are doing times table quiz show tomorrow. 2 sessions, so anybody from 8 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We've got these kids, we are going to drill the times tables into them. And also, I am Rich Whitefish. I want to officially award this can of Moxie to our president. For obvious reasons, today is an excellent day to award it to him, and our executive director got a matching can. And hopefully you will all understand the significance. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other public comment? Item number 2 on the agenda, a review and approval of minutes. I don't think we've had a chance to review minutes. Honestly, the last Finance Committee meeting, let me table this then, and put it on to the next meeting. We have a flurry of meetings right between Christmas and the holidays. I honestly can't remember when the last Finance meeting was, but we'll table that in the meantime. Okay, item number 3, update on tuition adjustments. This will be a discussion of new state adjustments to tuition for charter schools and the possible implications. Who's going to discuss that?
I think it can actually come up under the, it'll tie into the review of December month-end financials, and it's simply planning, so that all charters were notified by the state that there has been a reduction in the per head tuition amount, and so Cindy will be discussing that when we get to item number 5.
Okay, sure. Thanks very much. Item number 4, update on this agreement. Discussion about council agreement and lease, also and amendment of lease to the board. I think everyone is aware of the situation where we were in discussions because of our tuition reset earlier in the year in terms of the budget trimming that we could do. One of the steps of the many that we took were to begin a discussion with our landlord, Nick LaFata, who is amenable to taking some of the bill out of the lease in exchange for what I believe is $120,000 of credit. So this is something that Nick needs memorialized in a legal document, and I think the Finance Committee has probably seen over the past some discussions, also tying in with the Facilities Committee. We've talked about ways that we would deal with the not having the build-out being part of next year's leasehold rights, as we are the trustees. So I think it's important now that where we have pretty much, even though we don't know the specific option from a facilities point of view that we're going to pursue through this finance thing, I think it's pretty definite that we are not going to ask for Nick to maintain his obligation to do the build-out next year. And so for that reason, we've decided one part, and that's the important part to Nick, which is that we will amend the lease so that it reflects this new adjustment. What we decide to do for new facilities is another issue together, which is why we formed the Facilities Committee. So with that, that's how we advance. We don't have to have an answer right now to the all we need to know is that we are...
Is this an essential thing that we absolutely have to do so that we don't even consider that we're borrowing from Peter?
We need to have a correct lease. Yeah, we need to have a lease that absolutely specifies what our payment.
But I mean, is this an option we have to do, meaning instead of saying, well, why spend the money to build that later on when we are much bigger, the nut might be so high that we said, well, we were penny wise, pound foolish, because we traded for $120,000, but it cost $500,000 to do the build-out work.
We've already, in terms of our agreement, we've already seen some benefit of the lease reduction. So we have on a de facto basis, we've already sort of actually begun
Save them, okay.
to save money on
And it
it.
happens every year,
Yeah.
you save the 120.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. Or every year will be different depending on the enrollment. I mean, if we get an enrollment number that allows us to do a build-out, then we'd be able to bring that up with Nick. And we could just begin, the lawyers want us to address this and correct the lease for our sake and for Nick's also.
That's the question, because we've got our little tracks here, we've got our budget issues, and we've got our lease, that's in tandem. You were describing it previously just now about the plan for what the facilities arrangement might be next year, which would be dividing some space and using some of the space that's currently in the music room, for example, as a classroom.
Correct,
So,
yeah.
You mentioned the likelihood of having 3 sections of 6-7 instead of 4. That does have bearing on whether we are fully enrolled next year at 240. If we're planning.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a really, it would be a wonderful thing if we were fully enrolled at 240, but I think that the likelihood of that is not great. Whether you take a mixed view of it, that we're operating about a year behind, or simply look at the numbers in terms of enrollment for the upper grades, our first grades have been slower to fill. That if the read at the moment in terms of the class that moves up and stays and the percentage of new students that come in stays about the same, then we can anticipate that we won't have a full grade 6-7, which is our largest grouping. That'll give us the extra room that we need. I'd love to have the other problem and then be looking for additional space or ways to, we had looked into not just the accordion walls, but the more solid on a track walls that can be used in other spaces to divide them up. We have obviously 2 huge spaces. We have the sort of gym area and we have the art room space. If we ever had to sort of expand in that way, but I think it's a reasonable assumption at this point that our enrollment will probably be somewhere between 175 and 200 students for next year, maybe a little more than that. But that within those numbers spread out, with the way the enrollment looks like it would come in, we should be fine. And that's assuming having 2 full sections of K1.
Yeah.
So having the full complement of the 40 kids.
Yeah, I think the board ought to be aware that that's what this decision is bringing us to.
Well, I think, the decision in terms of making our budget work before, I think that this was part of making the budget work for this year. And that while, Gordon describes it as sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, in fact, what you're looking at is your growing enrollment. It's grown steadily. It'll continue to do that. You remember that last year in the budget, we were looking at a $300,000 surplus at 200 students. So the additional monies will be there if necessary for enrollment for expansion in year 4. If we want to go that way.
No, I understand. I just think that we need to spell this out. So
Oh, definitely.
everybody's aware that this is the master plan right now.
Right.
And just to review, you said we'd be likely using one of the rooms here that's currently 6-7 for a different grade. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then the music room for another classroom.
Well, that's where you put on I'm not exactly sure, like the moment the science lab and these 3 classrooms on the end are all 6-7.
Yeah.
And so part of what you have to decide, and that's why it's, when the teachers were there, they were sort of talking about where they thought it would be better to put kids. What we try and do is keep 2, 3, 4, 5, K1, so that they're in classrooms where they're next to each other in adjoining rooms. So from a supervision point of view, you can actually, when necessary, keep an eye on both rooms. But But also you want generally older kids having the science lab as their homeroom, just because the equipment that's in there. So, exactly where everyone goes is not decided, it's more looking at the space itself, and do
So,
we have enough for this?
And where I'm going is, what happens to music? Because we don't have to start banning our music program, so I wasn't clear what.
Well, there's two possibilities, right? One is what's currently the gym room would become a multi-art space for performing arts. So you'd use it for theater, you'd use it for music, use it for dance, and even that is better than many of the public schools. They actually have instruments on carts, and they move them around and teach music in the different rooms. So I think that, any way you slice it, it's still a much better program than otherwise. And the difficulty with the gym space really is the acoustics are very live, so we need to take a look at putting some banners in there and other things that'll make it.
That's a good art project itself, right there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so music would have that, most likely would be moving to that space.
That would be the ideal, yeah.
And we're looking for something off campus for some other.
Well, there's lots of possibilities here in terms of space for athletics and other things like that. There are a variety of spaces in Gloucester, all of which would be, I think, quite delighted to have the additional income come in. So, I think there's lots of ways to look at that.
Yeah, I think this agreement has a very moderate impact on our choices. I mean, if we were so fortunate as to get a very large enrollment number for the fall, we still have options that are off this particular site, other places. So I don't think we'd be putting ourselves at a risk of overcrowding or anything like that. We have other options that we can use in the event that we have a better tuition enrollment and higher financial load. And again, if it's really high, we can always go back and again renegotiate the lease. I think we'd be very happy to do some more work here, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, I'm bringing it up because I think we want to be thoughtful. I'm not saying people haven't been thoughtful, but to maintain a thoughtful approach about the quality of the program and the impact that any facilities changes might have on that. So I just want to think this out together.
Well, having said that, we have an item on this item in the agenda to say a possible motion to recommend an amendment, at least to the board. I think we should go ahead and make the recommendation that the board review this, discuss it at the next board meeting. We don't really need a motion to do that, but I think it's important that as an action item, when we next have a board of trustees meeting, that the head or one of the members of the finance committee say, at this meeting, we discuss this, and let's talk about it right now. So we all seem to be in approval of that. I'm not going to make this formal motion, just something that we will pursue at the meeting, and we'll put that in the board meeting agenda also as well, and follow up on the finance committee meeting from tonight. Okay, great, thanks. Now, the next one is number 5, review of December month-end and half-year financials by Cindy Marie, business manager from Central Source. Cindy, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you want to come to join us at the table, or?
Sure, just so I can
Yeah.
So, we did get some bad news that the tuition rate was being reduced by about $600 per student, which is quite a large number. And we are able to work with it. There are some adjustments that are definitely going to have to be made on the bottom line. We under budgeted on our grants, and our grants came in much higher than we budgeted. So that's going to help offset some of that deficit. The reason why I say not yet final is
Can I interrupt you for 1 minute so that
Sure.
nobody, either in the audience or here, misinterprets what you said?
Okay.
This is all charter schools in the state of Massachusetts
Yes.
are cut, not Gloucester.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarification on that.
Yeah, and I work with 12 charter schools, and every one of them received a reduction,
Okay.
except for Cambridge tuition rate, which continues to go up and up. Sorry to say, it's at the most ridiculous number you can imagine.
Okay.
I think isn't it 28,000?
It's $26,070 a year per student. So any of my Cambridge schools are very happy. The Boston rate went down, which was very surprising because usually they hit the mark on that number within maybe a couple of a percent. So to see us over $600 drop per student was very surprising. And definitely not a good thing, but we only budgeted about, 230,000 in grants, and it's looking more like 260,000. But I say not yet final because we've got to get final approvals on these grants, and so I just wanted to leave a little bit of wiggle room here to come back with the final financials for December once all that's worked out. Because they haven't been approved, it's likely that they will. They're entitlement grants, and they usually work with you until you get it right. So I think that will really help get us down to where we're trying to penny pinch, a few $1,000s from each little bucket of our budget. And not make any dramatic changes. So we're working out the final numbers on that, and I'm also waiting for December bank statements, and I don't typically finalize financials until I confirm the bank statements. So, but there's areas like the insurance, we over budgeted, some admin operations consulting's a little over budgeted, so there definitely was a little bit of room. Now after this review, there probably won't be any more room after this one, but, we'll make it work.
Was this budget based on 135 or 140?
It's based on 135, and I think from what I hear, the enrollment's a little bit higher than that, but I also am waiting for those final numbers that I should have tomorrow.
But just one common sense, 900,000 out of 43% valuation, $600 out of 11.7 is not 43%. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, why is it such a big discrepancy?
You're 60% to budget, because what happens is in September, you receive your biggest
The
payment.
check, right, okay.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
check is
because they
not
base it
raw.
on your pre-enrollment.
Gotcha.
So your first check was based on 196 students. So your next 3 checks, what happens is they say, okay, we owe you $1.6 million minus what we sent you in September, and they divide it over the next 3 payments. But the thing is they continue to adjust tuition every quarter. And so they can make it higher or lower. We could get a bump, next quarter. It tends to stay the same, but again, this is a year that is surprising.
Isn't this based around the Gloucester number though, the district number 11.7?
Which,
So if they drop at 6, does that mean Gloucester was getting less the money per
Yes,
student? I'm saying
yes,
that's why
yes.
we got
On the
this.
state
Yeah.
funding, chapter 70 stuff.
it's all based on the town. So what happens is they budget the numbers just like we do in the spring, DESE, and then in the fall, they get all the reports from the local districts. And that's why December is usually the critical month for determining what your actual tuition is going to be. And it shouldn't really fluctuate after this. I think we can feel safe that we're going to be fine. So.
Does that mean the district got a higher number of students and the budget was set, so the lower number per student, and that reflected what we got?
To be honest with you, I think that it's due to budget cuts more than it is headcount.
All right.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
So,
General across the board.
Gotcha.
yeah, and there's a lot of federal funding that's not in this year's budget. And so it must have skewed the numbers, and the DESE definitely, is a little far off the mark. Typically, when you do budgets, you don't budget the full amount of money that the DESE projects, but, we were working with a really tight budget, so. But again, we under budgeted in a lot of areas too, so it was very helpful that the grant money coming in is over $30,000 more than we were expecting.
But I noticed the expenses are skewed too, so that they're way lower than budget. And
Or
so
way
the thing
higher.
comes out, yeah, it's okay, but is
Yeah.
that because there's like a payroll period that's in January that didn't make it into December, as well as income that didn't make it in because the next check was January?
Well, the
or-
payroll's booked through December 30th and is maybe slightly skewed because you have to accrue for the month of July for your staff.
I see.
And so that wouldn't be in here.
But we're 667 low on payroll costs.
Yeah, in your payroll taxes, there's a little bit of room, we over
Yeah.
budgeted there.
But is that because there was, but I don't understand why, if it was based on 135 and we'd already made the teacher cuts, why are the expenses so much less? Just because there was a,
I guess this number is, this budget that you're looking at is the revised budget, not the budget that was approved in the spring. This is the revised budget that
The lower
it was approved, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and you're on target. I mean, you're halfway through the year and you're almost 50% the budget. It's slightly lower because again, we need to accrue for the month of
Oh,
July.
so this is a budget year to date, and
Yeah, so we're looking at, and I'm sorry, I sort of just jumped right into the numbers.
Okay.
I apologize.
Oh,
So the first column is what we've actually spent year to date. And the
gotcha.
second column is the revised budget that the board approved a few months back.
For the whole
Forgive me for
year.
not remembering when.
For the whole year, but not budget
Yeah.
for 6 months.
No,
Oh,
exactly,
that's why the
exactly.
thing is
So
reading so
then-
crazy.
So sort of like this is basically just showing the percent we're at to the
Gotcha.
annual budget.
Okay, fine.
So I apologize, next time I'll.
Because that's a
put
great
annual
column to
down.
have, budget year to date.
Yeah.
Because then you can really see where you are, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like, for example, with schools, a lot of times the supplies are all purchased like within the first 4 months.
Yeah.
And so, you'll see 90% of the budget on instructional supplies, but then on the insurance, you're only seeing 15%. So the year-to-date, I think when we build the budget in the spring, I think we will have a year-to-date that sort of shows that, and we'll add that column for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does make sense.
And
And I'm
we
sorry
always
to
have that, then you
miss
can look at it and say, you can see what track you're on. Rather than
Definitely.
trying to, subtract and add in your.
Cindy, does this include Title I?
Yeah, Title I, SPED, and then Title II for teacher quality, and it includes the Title I funds that we did not receive last year as well. And then the 535 startup grant is in here as well.
So you can carry over last year's?
We carried over 50,000 of the startup grant for last year, and we carried over a little over 20,000 for the Title I from last year. And we've submitted all the apps for those grants, but they just haven't been approved.
So this is, we actually are now getting paid for the Title I grants that we didn't get paid last year.
Not approved yet, we haven't received the
No, I
funding,
understand that,
but we
as
should
far as
be.
we know, since last year we were turning out for these things, not for very good reasons in my opinion.
Yeah.
And now we are
The
actually.
good news
paid
is
for
this,
that.
the SPED is not in my numbers yet, because they haven't said whether or not they're going to give us that money from last year for the 240 SPED grant. Sorry if I'm using the wrong terminology, it's a special education grant, it's just me and my acronyms, I apologize. But the 240 grant from last year was never issued to us, and Tony has legitimately been arguing the fact that we should receive those funds as well. And if that happens, then we can add to this, which would be great, because then we could buy some more pencils, so. Which Jody said we need.
So that would be last year's, as you said.
Yeah, we are getting this year's. It's just been it's a time-consuming process, as they want this document and that document, but I think it will all shake out in the next couple of weeks, and then we can submit finals. So it was great that we had some wiggle room.
How are you doing, Cindy, on payments for vendors and whatnot?
We're up to date with every single vendor, and the two vendors that we've asked just for, to flow cash flow, we're on a payment plan with. So there's nobody calling the school asking for money, and that was all taken care of with the first tuition payment. So everybody was happy in October.
I think it would be appropriate when talking about that to, particularly given the news today, to thank Foley Hoag for exceptional legal advice and counsel and support, and particularly doing so, if you look at our costs, the pro bono work they have done for us has been just outstanding, and so, I think I probably express for everyone, board, parents, everyone associated with the school, that, we're very lucky to have them. And they've certainly helped our bottom line as well. So,
Yeah, it was great.
Gives new meaning to the term pro bono.
So, Tony, Cindy, I'm not sure we're going to ask on this, but it looks like there is some money allowed in here for, is that professional development, the consulting in there?
Yeah, and I think
60.
Tony has some plans for that already. Very little though.
I'm just asking if we have something in the till for that.
we do, and when we put in the grants, we actually indicated that the hope was to have Annette Sullivan from the New York State return and or others in the same way to continue with that work on differentiation of instruction, among other things, but yeah, absolutely. And there is some, I mean, if you look at those lines, particularly insurance, you know, which if you're, despite, other than the areas of the budget that are front-loaded, the lines that are front-loaded, you know, insurance is at 18.94, and so there may be some flexibility there, consulting instructional, about where we should be, and that includes some of the subcontracted special education support we have. So that's really on track. It's not, there's not additional there. But equipment lease, we had put in significantly more because we were going to expand the number of copiers available and to staff, and also computer leasing. And what we did came in for less, and we haven't had to do it because of the gift from the Brookwood School in computers. We haven't had to put as much funding into that. So we've had some flexibility there that we wouldn't have anticipated.
Health insurance is provided for the faculty and staff.
Full-time, yeah.
Is it through a consortium of charter schools, or is it individual? Is it an individual group?
Everybody's individual. They haven't formed a consortium for health insurance, much more
So
complicated.
the Gloucester School has a group.
The Gloucester is its own group, that's correct.
Okay, and that insurance cost is split in any ways by the staff?
75-25, so the school is covering 75% and the employees cover 25.
Okay, and has that been reviewed? Is there people reviewing that every year, and its costs and
Yes.
alternatives and?
Definitely.
Yeah, we actually changed this year as well. So
Yeah, you have the best of the best for an insurance broker. He works with 40 charter schools, and I've seen him do amazing work. And they do a lot of HR work for the school as well that doesn't cost the school any money, so there are a lot of additional services that come with it.
Yeah, one of the things that's happening in the state right now is the insurance commissioner and a committee is forming association plans. I don't know whether you're familiar with what that means, but they did away with them about 20 years ago. For example, retail drugstores were able to form an association and have one group health insurance plan and have a central accounting firm send one check in for all the members of this association. Now, they did away with it because they couldn't keep track of who was on the plan and whether someone's cousins and sisters and aunts and uncles, and you know, they weren't even working. They couldn't control it, but now they're beginning to form these associations.
They're trying to. They're having a hard time, but also I'll tell you this. The charter schools a lot of times do better individually because they have such a young workforce. And their rates end up being much lower. There are a few trusts. If you join Maya, that's a group trust. I've compared every one of my schools, if they were to join that trust versus individual, and every time they come up better on individual. But I see it, that's something that realistically should happen. Now, they've done it with the liability in workman's comp. So we have a mod factor now in the workman's comp that's saving us a ton of money, and insurance is way under what was budgeted.
The other thing that's happening in the insurance world, which could save us considerable money, is Paychecks, which is the company that issues, how do you issue paychecks? Through some central company?
We use Harper's. Harper's works with most Massachusetts charter schools, and their fees are about half of what ADP and Paychecks are. But the good thing about Harper's is they work with MTRS. MTRS is a beast of a report that you have to submit every month, and the rules are, it's mind-boggling what you have to know. And the good thing about HR Knowledge, our insurance broker, and also Harper's, because of their knowledge of MTRS, you know, we're able to put in the right systems. So instead of it taking, like paying a consultant like myself 8 hours a day to do the MTRS report, we're uploading it we're downloading and uploading it because Harper's is handling it. So I give you an example. 2 of my schools were with Paychecks and have left and now gone to Harper's. I mean, what was taking them days to do is now minutes,
And this is an area where you have such strident compliance requirements, you cannot be late. This mass teachers retirement stuff is you
Yeah,
have to be very, very crisp in your execution of those obligations, so.
part of the audit
I
every year.
know I've worked with CompuPay and Paychecks and all these other ones and MassPay, and, you know, it's like, the account executives who manage it would be a stretch for them to even get their arms around some of these.
Yeah, I've had a
It's
lot
worth
of
it.
problems
It's
with the other companies. We're moving out of Paychecks now. So I shouldn't badmouth them because privately in corporations, they do a fantastic
It's a great
job.
company.
But charter schools are just their own animal and, you know, this is a whole new world.
The association plans have just,
That would be
Just-
interesting to see how that
just 2
shakes
weeks
out.
ago, they approved all chamber groups. In other words, Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce, North Shore Chamber of Commerce, all these chamber groups in the state can form an association and have one plan. That's one of the first, so
That would be really
they're
good for
starting to
them.
name certain retail grocers. You know, all the big supermarket can form an association. So they're starting,
I'm sorry, so if you're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, like the Cape Ann Chamber of Commerce.
If you work on it.
Essex, Manchester, you know, Gloucester, Rockport, you have any kind of business and you remember. the-
no, only the workers for the chamber. That's
The
what I
workers for
meant.
the chamber,
Yeah,
not
the
the chamber.
employees,
Yeah, okay.
the employees of the chamber.
That's still a lot of people in Massachusetts. I mean,
Oh, that's- oh, yeah. It's thousands. So they're forming an association group, so if they're in Holyoke or Gloucester, they have this one health plan under that association, and they pay, you know, the payroll goes into this, and somebody writes one check for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and they're making deals with Harvard and Tufts, and so this is coming on, and it's something that we should keep our eyes
Yeah.
on, because the charter school is a natural associate, they're under one, see, they're under one
Staff.
head,
Mhm.
right? We have a head, we have a head in the State Department, you know, and that could funnel everything in there, it would.
Well, I know HR Knowledge has been working on this,
Good,
but you
good,
know what's
okay.
great? They'll come out as many times as you want, and they go out to bid every year for the benefits that we offer.
Yeah,
So I think it would be great to have him come to maybe one of the meetings, because he's way more knowledgeable than
that's
I am.
great, because that can save a business or an institution like this, you know, considerable amounts of money.
Oh, I've seen
If it's done right, right?
absolutely
You know that.
phenomenal numbers, yeah.
Great,
You know, can I just say one thing about the budget, just in full disclosure? I have not made any changes to the budget. So what you're gonna see when my finals come through is you're gonna see a little bit of a change in the tuition. I've gotta make an adjustment there. And then the grants are gonna increase. So you're gonna see the income in different buckets when I do present the final. So I just wanted to make sure that you didn't think that, you know, there's some slight changes. Yeah, you'll see the insurance, I'll readjust that, and what I'll do is I'll make footnotes on every single item that I change, so it's in the interest of full disclosure, as Tony always says, so. I just wanted to make sure I was clear, that's why I wrote not yet final, and, you know, I will be lowering that tuition a little bit.
So the ballpark is about 80 grand less tuition, 600 times 135,
Yep.
and about 60 grand more in grants. And
Yes.
so we just have to
We've got to pull
saw
from
and
here
sand
and there,
and file down the other
yeah.
20.
Good with numbers.
Yeah. That's an easy number to do in your head.
Yeah.
35 times 60.
So, for, when we do get down to the review of schedule for, well, actually, we don't have it on there, so we're not gonna be discussing the topics for future meetings, but I just have it in the minutes here that we should get, I think we should get HR Knowledge in.
Definitely, definitely. They should meet with the employees again too, because I think they had a meeting at the beginning of the year, but not everybody was there and it was so much going on. I think now it'd be good to get him in front of the employees, so maybe at a staff meeting, he could do 15 minutes. Because a lot of times people just aren't aware of what's available to them.
yeah,
So, and they have a very rich benefit package yet. It's a very good benefit package,
yeah.
so.
So at the next meeting, we will have the update for the board on the full budget and the other adjustments, but I think that I want to highlight that what a change it has been to have Cindy Marie and Barbara and the Central Source team here, the knowledge that they have of charters and what's happening in the charter world, which is such a unique program in terms of funding, grants, access. It has saved us an enormous amount of money.
Once we got rid of that loser Rick Crowley, we were like, oh,
He's a high level guy.
He sat on the DESE himself.
He was on the board, yeah.
Very, very
Yeah,
impressive guy.
yeah, he's working with us also still, so, and he's always around to help out. I will say this, Central Source really is working towards uniting charter schools and really facilitating that, like for example, with meals programs. So I'm meeting with a gentleman tomorrow that set up an amazing meals program in Marlboro. So it's because I see so many charter schools and I see best practices, we're able to bring that to all the schools. So we're hoping we can negotiate a group buying through this gentleman.
Yeah, that was my next question, is there a vending consortium? You know, pencils and papers,
Mhm.
one order for all the charter schools.
Yeah, like, it
Isn't that-
happens because you start to get buying power, because instead of Blue Cross Blue Shield dealing directly with you guys, they're dealing with Ken, who has 40 charter schools. So now, I have 12 charter schools that I work with, and so when I call my copier guy, he wants to talk to me. So I think that it's just coming together that way because, you just needed to get all the charter schools together. But Staples has definitely put together some pricing, and Fred C. Church has definitely put together a program. And we're talking about doing a big event, like sometime in the fall, and bringing all these vendors under one roof. And, hopefully we can keep getting more and more discounts. But there are companies like Conica Minolta that have given donations to the charter schools as well, who have loaned copiers to charter schools that didn't have it in their budget. And this one particular salesperson is really committed to the movement. So, he's been giving checks for $3,000, $5,000 for copiers. We have food vendors that are giving 2 weeks free food. So SideChem is, one of those companies. But, so I think it's coming together. I think it's in the next year or so, I think there'll be a lot more of it, which will be great to see. And it's something that's what I'm concentrating on, is sharing the SPED director and sharing the speech therapy. So I met with WKM. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to meet with them yet, but they do a great job, and hopefully, with all the combined charters, they'll beat some pricing, and help everyone out. But a lot of times, if you could, I have 2 schools that are now sharing an IT director, so they're splitting the cost of that IT director.
Wow.
So, but you really needed just somebody to sort of bring it all together. So as my company grows, I have my employees now, and then that frees me up to go out and do that type of work, which is what I love to do. I used to be a corporate buyer, so this is so much fun for me.
You love playing them up.
Yeah, I like to be in the position.
Right, because you
I have
get one
12
guy gets
schools.
more business, so it's good for them too.
So it's been a lot of fun. It really has. I really enjoy that work the most. I don't like doing payables anymore. That's why I laugh, because Barbara does that. Barbara works with me. She came on board about 6 months ago, and it's working out great. So Gloucester's our favorite school, just so you know. She likes art.
That's good. Well, we're playing here.
Cindy, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, really. I'm really enjoying it.
And Barbara?
You're welcome. You guys are great to work with. Thanks.
Keep up the good work. Okay, item number 7 on the agenda, the update of the credit line. And as soon as I find out about the outcome of the judge's ruling this morning, I called our banker, and he asked that we submit these financials and begin the process of the fine. So,
Where is that, what bank is that?
well, Century Bank, which has done this loans, have backed a lot of charter schools before in the past, so they're familiar with charter school financing, whether it's leasehold financing or just, the letter. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is a AA+ credit, so, having a letter from them with the promise of the payment is, for them, just like any other letter of credit.
Did they have any group credit lines?
It's going to be underwritten on an individual school-by-school basis, so there's no kind of
Connection.
economy of scale to be had there, or economy of discount or anything.
Yeah, but you want to be vulnerable for someone else's credit, you know what I mean?
Well, more important is like a lower interest rate,
Yeah.
like a lower interest rate.
Right, no, I understand.
They had
It's-
12
it's-
charter
it's-
schools, you know?
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, is it's a specialty of theirs, so they understand the risks
Okay.
and the underwriting, so, and there are other places too, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
But so we'll be having discussions with them, and they will be ongoing. Cindy Marie's already talked to several people who have incredible experience there, so.
So they were more positive.
Well, it's a risk that is eliminated, so, and,
What kind of numbers are we talking about, a credit line of how much?
it would really be, you know, we have always sort of had in the back of our mind, I don't know, like 200, 250,000 on there.
Yeah, I think that would be ideal. Anywhere from 150 up would be
Okay, yeah, it doesn't have to be
the right way to go.
We wanted more rather than less, but we could get by 150 easily.
Tony requires very expensive vacations.
What vacation?
But vacations.
It's the food on the vacations
Yeah.
that's big.
Okay, so there's not much to do with the credit line there. Update on fundraising foundation work, again,
Jim,
Sean.
Jim,
I'm sorry, Aaron,
did
yes.
you miss number 6?
Cash flow.
Cash flow, Cindy, do you want to come back and review that with us for a second? Sorry.
Oh,
The cash flow,
cash-
sorry about that. I guess I
Cash-
did, I had this stricken out for some reason.
So I looked at cash flow out,
Yeah.
I should provide a balance sheet of cash flow and a final P&L for December's financials. And in the cash flow, we get really, really tight that month right before tuition kicks in, and that's why it's so critical to have that line of credit. But, you know, we also, until that line of credit goes into play, we're not so free with, you know, we're really managing the cash. It just gets tight. That, you know, you're trying to make those 2 payrolls right before that tuition, because tuition's 3 months behind. You know, essentially, that's what you're dealing with.
This is a charter school unique
Yeah.
issue where this is.
Every
what-
charter school has a line of credit or needs to get one, and they all do the same thing. They pull in the money, and then as soon as that tuition payment comes in, they pull it back. But if we project it out, the worst case scenario is, we probably say to the landlord, hey, we're gonna make double payments on the, you know, the March payment and double payments on June. Can we, you know, float us that 1 month? Because it really just gets within the few thousand as far as tight. I think it's very manageable whether we get the line or we don't, because, you know, we do happen to have, you know, somebody that's willing to work with us.
What is a typical charter school's credit cost for a year? Like $3,000 to make those jumps?
Yeah, if that nowadays,
Not even that,
it's all
right?
prime plus
Because
one.
everything is right, so,
Yeah.
okay.
And Century actually works with a lot of my schools, and they have been fantastic to work with. But they're also big donors to charter schools as well. So I've met with Eastern, I've met with Century, I've met with Cambridge Savings. Cambridge Savings is up there too, as far as somebody to talk
I mean,
to.
the key is you pay it back as soon as you get your check,
And they
right?
know this with charters.
And then you get rid of the expense.
Yeah, yeah, and they have all the information. I mean, I'll be, you know, I don't wanna say we're gonna get it, because then
No, of
you're
course
just
not.
jinxing yourself.
Yeah.
You know, things have obviously gotten much harder to get lines of credit than they were a few years ago.
Sure, it's much more difficult than that.
Yeah.
But then unfortunately, you know, some of our creditors have been very good to us, especially.
Yeah, yeah,
So we have
and,
a built-in line of credit, if you will. You know,
We just don't write the check.
But
Yeah.
very good about that.
he's been fabulous. So when I mapped out cash to June, I saw that March and, you know, the June month, those 2 months, are the months we get the money, but we don't get it till the end of the month. If we got it at the beginning of the month, we had no problem.
Right. So it's timing of cash flow, expenses versus income.
Yeah, so the good news is the line is not used to, it's not a loan, you're not funding, it's just cash flow, that's all it's for.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Aaron, does that answer your questions? Answer your questions or anything?
Yeah, I was just saying that we skip that one, that agenda
I'm
item.
on cold medication right now, so I'm missing a lot of things right this very Okay. Update on fundraising and foundation work. Let's see, I'm very happy to report that the Amelia Peabody Foundation was here in, I think, mid-December, is that correct, Tony?
That's,
Susan?
Last day of school before vacation.
Last day of school before vacation.
yeah, December 19th.
This is a family foundation that operates out of Wellesley, Massachusetts. Thanks, Gordon.
The 21st, that's we canceled the draft.
They have a strong interest in this area. They've been a big funder of a lot of educational institutions up here, including the Waring School. They were instrumental founding a couple arts programs in Gloucester that took the role of educating students after school in the arts space. They've been very, very, very active in the area of charter school funding. They're very interested in seeing charter schools succeed. With any foundation, you have to build a relationship. They don't show up and open their checkbooks. They want to see you kick the tires, which we've begun that process. We've gotten some nice feedback from the executive director, Alex Eisenhoff, who actually lives right up in this area and is very knowledgeable of the situation, as are some of the chief manufacturers of the foundation. So we will be talking to them over the course of the time. Again, I wouldn't expect too much, but one of the things they are acutely interested in is helping provide charter schools with additional academic resources, specifically in the MCAS area. So that would be a great interest for us to work with them and develop a relationship there. I will say there are other foundations that we intend to approach. This takes a long time to get done. We've been in touch with the Community Puberty Foundation for several months before we were actually able to get them to show up. So this is a very long, slow process of relationship building. But we have other target foundations that we'll be looking at and addressing, and I think that this will be something that will become more of the board's advocacy work, and there are certainly a lot of groups out there that like the kind of work that we do. There are entire foundations dedicated to nothing but funding physical plant and equipment for charter schools, for example. And some are private corporations, some are family foundations, and some are government funding authorities. So we have a lot of options in this area. Now that we're sort of able to have a little visibility about things, and this year had certainly a lot of challenges in terms of having to readjust the budget at last minute, and those challenges probably will never go away, but I think we've seen the worst of it. So we have a little extra time now where we can start setting our sights a little longer distance than what payrolls will look like in 3 months or whatever. So this is something that we will be doing a lot more work on. It's great to have the board members and also faculty and staff, if ever, attend these meetings, get an idea what they're looking for. Very often it's the teachers themselves who have the best handle on the people that are practitioners, who know these foundations because they've been working with them over time. I think Susan was the one who actually brought the Community Puberty Foundation in. They have done SPED work as well in the past, and we have other foundations that are in our target zone that are very keyed up on things. I mean, there are the Rockefeller Foundation does a huge thing called Creative Capital, which is all about performing arts in schools, for example. So there's a lot out there. We haven't really even scratched the surface, but I think that we've got a unique enough proposition here that our mission is one that aligns well with a lot of other foundations, be it private, family, corporate, whatever. So we're looking forward to more of that, and we're hoping that's sort of a regular ongoing thing. Again, in the work I've done in the past with other nonprofits, it is a building process. You really get to sort of win their confidence if you like what you're doing, and you just work at it, and you find a happy meeting ground, and then things start to happen. And as long as you provide them the impact they want, and you are forthright about whenever you have a problem, and you move ahead. And it's actually a very rewarding part of the whole process. At some point, this will move from the board to the foundation that we are founding right now, so it won't be a board responsibility. And in a perfect world, that's really the better way to go, is to have a board with its own executive officers, its own board of directors. We're just not there yet, so there's going to be a lot of overlap right now.
Since we're on the foundation part here, the Rockport Music Foundation approached us. They're not giving us any money, but they're going to bring 2 concerts in here in February because they felt like we were deserving.
This is great, Court. That's great news, because the other thing is, it's not just about the money, it's about the
It wasn't
resources
they
and
approached
experience
us.
that you
Yeah.
have. And there's a company that's great, marketing clout, and bring a lot of people in here that might not normally come into this building and see it and see what a beautiful facility.
Well, they're going to do it for the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be
Okay.
school
I see.
time too, not morning meeting. It's
Yeah.
going to be, right, Tony?
Correct.
29th of February?
Which will,
27th for the children's concert, and 29th is
Yeah.
Sunday, 4:30
That's
is the public
so there will be a
Public
chance to
concert.
start.
At Shannon Lou, or?
No, here.
here.
So,
And they can't target
It
us.
would be great somehow to get the kids over to Shannon Lou in some form,
Just to see
to
us.
see and to hear something on stage, music-wise. Absolutely, somehow, I don't know how.
there's definitely a lot of interest in that kind of thing right now. Actually, Tony and I, one of the first times we had coffee together, had Greg Bover, who's the head trustee of the library, and also the manager of the C.D. Fisk Organ Factory, which is a great old institution that
Yeah.
actually employs artists, full-time, say anytime you want, bring the kids over. So there's a lot of opportunity for that, to bring the kids into the, arts and culture and commerce world here, and most of these people are delighted that we chose.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah, it's
We need a
great
bus.
experience for the kids, yeah, exactly.
My same
We'll bring that up.
We need a bus.
So Jim,
Get us a bus.
Yeah, sure.
on the foundation,
Yeah.
we have a new board member with us.
Yes, Aaron.
Thank you, Evans. Thank you, Aaron. We do have the need to bring on some new candidates onto the board for the foundation as well.
Exactly, yes.
If people have ideas about who you might want to nominate for that, I guess you can approach James or me about that.
That's right, 'cause right now Dave and I are two officers.
So we want to try to move that along as we're.
Again, in the perfect world, we really don't want any board members, we want to be as separate as possible, because the foundation it's a community foundation. It's supposed to serve many purposes. So we want to have that, and again, that's our ultimate goal, is to have it set up that way. So, I think that about ties it. Are there any other questions on any items? Any board members? Okay, well, why don't we, on item 9, Tony, do you want to talk about reviewing the schedule for 2012-2013 budget development?
Just at this point, say that starting with the meeting in February, we will, prior to that, begin, Cindy and Barbara and I and Joey begin building the projected budget. And so we would hope to have that, at least a preliminary draft ready for the board for review in February, with the full understanding that pre-enrollment at that point won't be, identified.
February 8th, you'd have it ready for the board meeting?
We'd have a preliminary draft.
On February 8th, that'd be great.
So that we can begin to put that together, and then that allows us in March to make adjustments once the pre-enrollment cap is set. And then that's the budget we live with going forward. And then obviously, just like this year, in September again, we take a look at it and see where we're at with the enrollment comes to the board.
Do you want to meet that day too, the finance committee on the 8th before the board meeting?
Are you already doing the facilities then?
Facilities at 5 o'clock,
Finance at 6.
finance at 6, and then the board meeting at say 7? You need an hour?
Is facilities an hour? Could you do 5:30 to 6 and 6 to 7?
Probably. Honestly, one of the reasons why this meeting has gone on so long, A, we started a little late, but B, we haven't had a finance committee meeting, in I think, I'm going to say almost 2 months. So
Okay.
normally our meetings
So a
are
half
shorter. Yeah.
5 to 5:30, you have
Yes,
a
exactly.
finance committee 5:30 to 6, and then a board meeting at 6, with coffee and donuts
You bring the pizza.
and candy kisses afterwards,
And Moxie for everyone.
including the cameraman. Right.
Okay, so are we, motion to adjourn? Okay, well, we'll take that under advisement. We still have to work out the schedules for those February 8th meetings, but if we can line them up,
Okay.
we'll do just that. Howard, thanks for the recommendation. Well, are there any other comments or questions from the finance committee? That being said, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Any seconds? Second, any discussion?
It's a great idea.
Just want to bring out one point.
One point, sure.
Everybody ready for tomorrow night, 5 o'clock?
And do we just bring a check, a blank check, and you'll tell us the amount? Because aren't we paying for it?
Yeah.
Or somebody buying it, we're
A
reimbursing?
blank check?
Well, we don't know how much it is yet. do we?
I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, okay.
We'll figure that out. The number, the federal nonprofit tax number.
Okay,
We need that
okay, so,
tomorrow night.
all right,
We gotta give it to them.
okay,
I
fine.
don't.
I can take care of that. I'll email it to you and you can do it.
And I think the bill, we can, figure it out and then pay it 2 days later. That's fine.
Okay, well, that ends the discussion on whether to go to a vote to adjourn the meeting. All in favor?
Second.
Okay, let the record show this meeting ended exactly 7.